He still cannot understand what he has done. He was standing over a dead man. A dead man he had killed a few minutes ago. Those minutes had seemed like centuries to him. He had killed a man. A man. How had he done this? Time was passing and he was unable to put his thoughts in order. He could feel his very heart being ripped out of his chest and his humanity leaving him. His hands were bloodied and still. One was holding a wallet and the other was clutching a knife, soaked in blood. Blood, blood, blood. That was all he could see in front of him, blood and despair. How did this happen? A few minutes ago he was walking carefree, but also lost in his world, drinking the third bottle. He was never a wealthy man, but at least he had a simple job that allowed him to keep a roof over his head. But tonight, he had lost everything. His job took a deadly plunge and he himself was now a feather in the wind. He didn't know if he would make it. He has a family and children. As soon as he left his former job, his desperation had turned red. He put his hands in his pockets and took out 50 euros. He didn't have any money but that. He decided to spend it on 3 bottles of whiskey. He was always a drinker and sometimes bordered on alcoholism. His wife had scolded him countless times for overstepping the bounds easily and he was determined to tone it down. But tonight he couldn't do otherwise, his body was demanding it. He was going to drink to feel a little better, if only for a little while. To feel like he was in his own peaceful world. After all, we all live for such small moments of happiness. He didn't even realize when he was down to the 3rd bottle, he was angry that his happiness was running out so quickly. He wanted to drink until he felt free, for a while, but the drink is not joking. The dizziness had already blinded him both in the head and in the eyes. He got up to go to his house. He didn't care where he was going, nor the fact that his wife and children would see him in this filthy state. He was just walking. Every step was more and more difficult. He was sinking into the ground. He thought of nothing, only despair. Then he saw him. A young man walking carefree unlike himself. This stranger was walking and every step was full of life and eagerness. He felt happy and his heart was complete with happiness. In his hand he held a ring and in the other a bouquet of flowers. He was wearing beautiful and expensive clothes and the drunk man noticed a wallet in the right pocket of the stranger's expensive coat. He immediately thought that all his problems would be solved if he had this money in his pocket. He didn't waste time thinking about anything. He dropped the bottle on the ground and it shattered into pieces with a loud crash. The stranger was terrified at first but calmly continued on his way. He had never liked walking in the city at night, because then there are many dangers lurking. Before he could take a few more steps away from the drunk man, he suddenly felt a cold blade touching him. Ice-cold sweat began to run down his forehead and that's when he heard the man's voice. "Give me all your money now," he whispered to him menacingly. The stranger was about to faint from his fear, but he couldn't help it. The cold blade touching his neck burned him and made him tremble with panic. No, he wouldn't lose his life now. No, he immediately obeyed and gave him his wallet. He opened it and found a sum of millions inside. He saw his ID. The unknown man had the last name of a famous multimillionaire. The drunk man smiled upon seeing the cash and the credit card and immediately put them in his pocket. But then he also saw the ring in the hands of the terrified man. His clouded mind began to grow more and more greedy. "Give me your ring too," he said, bringing the knife back to his throat. The stranger was startled. "No, I can't give you that. Please take all that's inside the wallet and leave me alone," he said fearfully but decisively. But the man would not take no for an answer. Without even thinking, he started stabbing him in the neck. The young man fell to the ground and passed out after being stabbed 6 times. The ring was held tightly in his hand, as if he was protecting it. After all that, silence. And now, we come to the present. The stranger was now dead and covered in blood and the man was left looking at him. The dead man's lifeless, frozen gaze stared deep into his soul. The man began to be overwhelmed by feelings of panic and despair. It was as if he was once again a small child who had done some serious damage and was looking to hide in his mother's arms. But no one was there for him. He could have stopped and kept the money. Thus the unfortunate man would live and he would solve all his problems. But greed is far worse than alcohol after all. She clouds people and turns them into vampires who seek blood. He would never be the same again. Maybe he too would become a blood-seeking vampire. 10 minutes had passed since this tragic event, but to him it seemed like 10 whole centuries. He felt as if he died and he was born again. He heard nothing around him, everything was dead. He heard neither the terrified screams that broke out, nor the sirens that sounded. He neither felt nor said anything even when they were handcuffing him and getting ready to call his wife. His gaze was permanently frozen and staring into space. He didn't know where he was or what he was feeling. The only thing he could see in front of him was blood. Despair and blood. This is all he will ever see in front of him from now on.